Welcome to episode 2 of Monk Chat with Ajahn Jimmy. Today, I wanted to repeat a question that our teacher asked at the beginning of a retreat, where he said, "What was the reason for the Buddha to have to be born and get enlightened?" People often summarize the teaching of Buddhism as don't do evil, do good, and purify the mind. But all of that already existed even before the Buddha was born and before he got enlightened. People in families would already teach that to their children. There was already Brahmanism, which taught meditation and ways to purify the mind. So, my question to you is, what was the need for the Buddha to be born, the Buddha to get enlightened, and what did he have to discover that made Buddhism different from Brahmanism that was there before?
The short answer is that what was available and taught at the time doesn't work. Doesn't mean it doesn't work like at all, but it means that it's still not able to help people liberate from suffering, from birth, from aging, from sickness, and from death. That's why he himself, who have did all the good when he was a prince and throughout many lifetimes and before being the Buddha himself, restrained from evil and purified the mind, studied with the best teacher at that time, he still have to venture forth to find his own answer. And what he found, and that's the topic of today, what did he find out that made him the Buddha? What the Buddha found out is something that we all...
Do you mind me? I think there was something our teacher once said, I forgot who said it, I'm sure you can help me with that, but that all happenings arise from a cause. And the Buddha taught the cause of the rising, the maintaining, and the falling of everything, which you can help me and correct me here. We focus on everything that happens in the mind, on Dhamma. So everything that arises, maintains, and then falls inside our mind, it all has a cause. For arising, there's a cause for it maintaining, and there's a cause for it ceasing.
That was the answer given by one of the first disciples of the Buddha. When the Buddha attained enlightenment, he then taught the 5 ascetics, the first 5 monks in Buddhism. And after they all have attained enlightenment, one of them was stopped by a person who was also seeking a spiritual path, who would then end up being the Buddha's right-hand monk, I think. So there he was searching for a spiritual teacher, and he found this monk walking and in a manner that pleases him, the way he holds himself, the way he walked and everything. So he approached that monk and asked, "Who is your teacher and what did your teacher teach?" And that monk, one of the first 5 ascetic, Venerable Asashi, he said that my teacher is Gautama Buddha. My teacher taught me that all of the natural phenomena or Dhamma rises from a cause. My teacher taught me the cause that gives rise to all phenomena and the cause that ceases all phenomena. In other terms, the cause of all Dhamma, the cause of all cessation of all Dhamma, basically. So for those at home wondering what are we talking about, the way that our teacher teaches us is simpler than that. He loved to bring up real-life stories to teach Buddhism, and he always begin with highlighting the life of baby sea turtles, where they are a representative of all of our lives, all sentient beings. And because Carmen have already talked about this in one of her videos, would you like to give it another go on it?
Sure. It's a favorite, the sea turtle story. So the turtles, as you said, are representative for all beings, but we see something in them very, very clearly. That is that when they hatch, their mother has gone back into the ocean 2 months before already. So they see the light of day for the first time, and they have 360 degrees of possibilities of where they could go next. And yet all of them will push their way forward through the sand to make it towards the ocean. And like I said in my first video, our teacher asked me, how do they know? And we got to the answer, instinct. Everyone from different ethnicities and nationalities would at some point answer this. And we found that instinct in Thai is called sanchatayaan, which means something like innate inner knowledge, or as we like to say, an innate inner program, something that has existed before any individual turtle in any country of the world has existed, and that dictates the turtles, meaning it leads, it guides, it advises, and it teaches them. So it's not passive knowledge that lies around. Those turtles have made it into the water, taught by their instinct. But after that, the ones who have made it, they still have answers to so many questions. Where to sleep, what to eat, which fishes to avoid, and when to migrate where. And for all of that, they still rely 100% on their instinct. And even though the environment does play a role, they still have to take these moment-to-moment decisions, and they take different ones. And the question is why? Why do some turtles end up eating the wrong food, some turtles eating the right food and sleeping in the safe places? Why is there so much difference if they're all dictated by this program on the inside that we call instinct? And the answer that our teacher always wants to get at is the core teaching of Buddhism, is the teaching of the Buddha that we were referring to in the beginning of the video. Why did the Buddha have to get enlightened? Because the Buddha found out that there's something that governs all beings and all things. There's a cause of all causes. And then on top of that, there's not one cause of all causes, but there are three root causes called the three natures or the three dhammas, because we've already introduced this word. And now we come to the discovery that the three natures, who they are, is defined by their goal. So the destructive nature wants exactly that. They want destruction and suffering, and they're clever in bringing that about. So they know exactly how to teach, advise, lead, and guide beings to get towards that outcome. They're not passive. They actively guide the beings to that outcome. And the wholesome nature or the constructive nature, the same. They are the expert when it comes to prosperity, to happiness and peace. And they actively guide beings there. Whereas the other one, the abhyagata dhamma, or the neither constructive nor destructive nature, is the expert in stagnation and wasting time, and also actively guides beings to get there. So when we look at the turtles and we look at the life of the turtles, we see how every action leads to an outcome. And this outcome is the achievement of the nature that guided the turtle in the first place. Because they don't have any knowledge, they are dependent on who is guiding them. And then when we look at their whole life, we see the achievements of different natures in different proportions. It depends. One turtle having a higher proportion of the wholesome nature or constructive nature has more of these intermediate outcomes during their lives. They live a longer, happier, more prosperous life in total when we look at the whole picture. Now, before this becomes like an exact repetition of the video that I took before, this is where I want to get back to the beginning, where I said people already taught that we should not do evil, we should do good, and we should purify the mind. But why didn't it work? Why was it still hard for everyone to do good, for everyone not to do evil, and to purify the mind? So now that we've talked about the three natures and we bring up this dilemma of humankind, maybe you can help me move this a little bit closer to home, to humans, to us humans.
These three natures, they govern us and all sentient beings with the inner voices and emotion. By entering into our mind and then and we perceive them as thoughts and emotion, where we believed before that those are our own. It is as if we have thought of them ourselves. This is where we find ourselves in a dilemma within our mind. I'm sure you have heard it before. The voices that goes back and forth in your mind, that argues, that directs, that dictate, that tells you what to do and what not to do, where to go and where not to go, where you are flip-flopping between the guidance of thoughts and emotion in your mind. And we have to prove this point for ourselves by looking at a man in crisis, to see and hear the voices in his mind and see how that have influenced his life and how our life have been influenced like his before. Is a story of one man who got a phone call from his neighbors that his house was broken into. So he rushes back home as fast as he can to find that his house was broken in, his family was hurt, and that everything was alright. He then went and asked his wife, who is with her children, of course, and asked what happened and who did this. And his wife told him that it was his longtime rival, a cousin that always have a beef with. The man who now realized that it was his rival that destroyed his family and his house found himself in a pit of rage and anger, like a volcano erupting in his mind. And from there, he hears a loud, angry thought, sounding just like his own, declaring that he's gonna kill him. I'm gonna go over there right now and I'm gonna kill him. This what he heard, the voices and the anger. But then he didn't hear another voice, a voice that is the opposite, a voice of calmness and reason that bring back his conscience to allow him to point out to him that if he were to go out and actually kill his cousin, he'll be in jail for a really long time and that his family will be broken because of it. Once the man regained his conscience and he heard that, he then decided not to follow through with the rage, with the anger. But that doesn't mean that the anger evaporates. It came back proposing something to him that is of a lesser degree. The anger brought him the idea that why don't you run up all of your friends and then go to where the cousin is and wreck his house, beat him up, just like how he did to his wife and his children and his house. The man would have gone through with it if it wasn't from that spark of clarity, where the voice of reason reminded him of the consequence once again, telling him that doing so wouldn't stop the issue but exacerbate it. You will not be able to kill your cousin. In due time, he would recover and he will plot his vengeance against you and your family. Not knowing when that will happen, how would you and your family ever have a peaceful night ever again then? Because of that voice, that inner conscience, that wholesome nature that pops up in his mind as if it is his own thought, it is reason enough that he decides to accept and chose not to follow through with the advice of the unwholesome nature. And we all have been there before, back and forth, on a fence between two opposing lawyers, each advising you to do different things, or providing you with their own reasoning and logic. But ultimately, and while as long as you still haven't made your decision, these back and forth will not stop. For hours, for days, for weeks, we've been there before. Always thinking and always believing to be our own thoughts and emotion. Because it is something that we grew up with. It's been there since the very beginning. And it's still here, even today. It has shaped all of our significant and insignificant decisions. The way we are living right now did not spawn out of nowhere. Every decision that is now our routine have a beginning. It starts off with an invitation. For example, when you have a habit of watching YouTube video while you're supposed to do work, you'll find yourself typing on a computer and then suddenly fatigue or boredom consume your mind. these feelings is a feeling that you have to endure, hard to endure. It now narrates and complains on your behalf how boring and tedious the work is. You didn't think of it. It's just pop up by itself. Sounds like you though, and you believe it's you, but it's not you. And when you inevitably agrees with it, agrees with that narrative, then that same voice kind of say, hey, then why don't you just open a new tab and watch some football highlights, for example, or watch something, you preserve some rest, some break. Now, if you are someone who is disciplined and never kind of like a skip on a job before, something like that, you will be reluctant. There will be a feeling, a thought that say, I shouldn't do this. I'm working right now. But then if that voice is persistent, they'll teach you, well, do you want to watch it? Because if you do, I'll teach you how to get away with it. And if you kind of like see fit, kind of are interested in it and want to know how to do it, then they'll teach you. And they say, okay, here's how you do it. You open this tab, but have your fingers on this shortcut so you can switch. You can open up this tab and then, adjust your monitor this way, act this way so that people outside can think you're working. And then when people walk past, you can switch by pressing this button. And then, pose in a way that in the corner of your eye, you can see people coming. All these kind of like a plan are brought to you, and when you accept them, you follow through with them. And that's where everything begins. The next day, that voice come again. Your conscience, your good conscience, the one that is proper, logical, know what is right or what is wrong, have common sense, and say, hey, you shouldn't do it. How risky was it yesterday? But then the other one say, no problem, you were almost caught, but you wasn't caught, right? Now you have to be more careful this time. Then, and if you accept that, you will keep doing it until it become a habit that inhibit you from moving forward. Now, what I'm talking about here is a real life example that we all can relate to, I hope. How we get to this point where we know it's not good, but now that is our habit. There's this program on the inside that kind of play out automatically every time we work. And it ruins our life because we are supposed to do work and our work never really finishes. Or even if it does, it's not as amazing as it should have been. And now we find ourselves stuck. We blame social media, we blame this, we blame that. Of course, these things do have an impact, but that all those are merely different components. But the real root cause is the inner voice and emotion that you listen to again and again to a point where it has become a habit, a program that runs right away. That is why it is hard for those who want to do good to do good, because they are full with program that prevents them to do that. That's why it is difficult for people not to do evil, not to make repeated mistakes, not to do something that they know they shouldn't do, because there is pressure. The program that came in as a voice that irritates and bombards and obnoxious, together pressure and suffocation that prompt them to do the same mistake again and again. Without realizing this, we will not be able to liberate from that program that will repeatedly give us suffering. This is something that is a story that we have to really sit down and think. Have we experienced the inner voices and emotion just like that man before? Have we also believed those voices and emotion that turns out that we knew we shouldn't do and turns out to be right, and are hurt and have our life destroyed by it or not? And are we still now stuck with different programs that we know we shouldn't have, but now it feels like it's beyond our control to do anything about it or not? By knowing the right cause and the root cause, we can then begin our conversation on how to fix it, how to differentiate the different voices and emotion, how to connect only with our wholesome nature. Because just like baby turtles who are able to connect with their wholesome nature, able to live safely, prosperously till the rest of their life. If we learn to do that, we too can have a easy, successful, prosperous life. It's not something beyond our capability. Baby turtles can do it. Kittens, who 3 of them have just been born in the center. I saw them. They can yet open up their eyes, but they meow, 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 and then they crawl to drink the mother's milk. From the moment that they're born, they know with their instinct on how to survive. Every being have this program, have this nature inside of them. We just need to learn to differentiate, to learn about the existence of these 3 different natures and learn to connect with the right one. Do you have any comment or anything you want to add or want to talk about?
In one thing, you said the root cause is the thought and emotion, which is the cause, but not the root cause, because the thought and emotion or the program, again, has to come from somewhere, right? All Dhamma, everything that happens in the mind is born from a cause. So just like to make that clear, everything comes from one of the 3 natures.
Maybe we can talk about how what we have discussed in the previous episode will help us with the topic that we're talking about in this episode.
Well, when you put it like that, then we've already talked about the good system before. We've already talked about the wholesome nature before. We just haven't named it like that. So we talked a lot about the process that the Buddha also discovered. When we tell our mind something, the mind will do it. So when we tell our mind, for example, that we want to be in awareness of something, then our mind will do that. When we tell our mind to be aware of the soles of our feet, then in that moment we will perceive the soles of our feet because the state of awareness arises in our mind. How this connects to the good nature is because every state, everything that arises in our mind comes from a cause. And awareness is the foundation of the good nature. In every wholesome state of mind, together with it, or as the foundation of it, awareness will come. So this is a way that the Buddha discovered we can connect to the good nature. It's like putting the plug into the socket. You know, the moment we tell our mind to come back to ourselves, to know clearly of something like the soles of our feet, and the state of awareness has arisen, now we plug the plug into the socket, and then good energy is being generated by our mind, which then cleans out all the pollutants in our mind. And now we have a whole new layer to this as well. Where do these pollutants come from? All of that mental fog, all of the wandering mind, all of the irritation and anger, all of the sleepiness and all of the doubt. Where do all of this come from? And we have now learned, oh, there's another nature, the destructive nature. Whenever they come into our mind, they leave their marks on our mind, what we call pollutants, and they degrade our mind. So basically, the overall quality of our mind. Like when we have a room that we want to rent out, and the room is being dirtied by someone over and over and over, then as it becomes this dirty, unpleasant room, the quality of it also sinks. We cannot rent it out very nicely to a good price anymore. And when our state of mind is low, when the quality of our mind is low, it makes it easier for the unwholesome nature to come in. It makes it easier for them to be the ones who guide us and then bring up more of their energy to then continue in that ongoing cycle of always thoughts and emotion, energy being brought about. We continue to do that action or that habit you were talking about. And the only way to get out is to use the good system, or we need the good system. We need them to liberate us. First of all, the good nature has to come into our mind. It's this moment when we have a sense of ourselves again. And it's like in the example of the man, where it says, hey, if you do this, this will be the outcome. If that voice wouldn't come, then he would have no other option. He would just be pressured to go down that way. Or like you said, if there isn't the voice, when we already have developed a habit, like not doing our work, but watching videos instead, when there isn't that moment of clarity, like, hey, are you sure? Like, do you know what the outcome is of this? You will have work undone and everything will just be put on the long bench and it's not solved. Once that happens, now it's our turn because we have learned about the good system. We now get the ball from the good system. They give us the ball. And what we have to do is to bring our mind somewhere. It's like a safe place, an object, or a signal where we can place our mind so that the state of awareness can maintain. And then we watch over that, like we have a baby on our arm and we just hold it and watch over it until we forget. And then we do it again. We do it again. This process happening over and over and over. And we learn, oh, we have this automatic cleaning system, this healing system like we talked about. We just have to work in accordance with it. Whenever we come back into awareness, whenever we remember, oh, we were meditating, that is the moment to then bring our mind back to our safe place, to the signal that we chose, because it helps us. It makes it easy for us to maintain in the state of awareness. This is how, bit by bit, layer by layer, the pollutants in our mind get cleaned out. This is why we practice meditation. There's mindfulness, where we practice throughout the day to not accumulate any more pollutants, to be able to differentiate between the three natures as we go throughout our day. And there's meditation, where we come to shed one layer after layer after layer of the pollutants that have been building up ever since we can remember. When we shed layer after layer of pollutants, the overall quality of our mind increases. Now the exact opposite happens. The room becomes more beautiful, more shiny, more bright, more open. And it's easier for the wholesome nature to come into our mind. And this is actually something very like that we've all felt before. When we are already in a good mood, we already feel comfortable, we feel like everything's good, then it's really easy for us to accept the guidance of the wholesome nature and kind of be on our best behavior. Whereas when we are already feeling bad, we're already feeling uncomfortable, kind of already cornered and pressured within our own mind, so easy for the unwholesome nature to guide us and for us to act from a place of irritation and from a place that later on we will regret it. We will have to apologize to the person and say, I wasn't myself. I don't know what got into me. To finish this off, the other reason that awareness is so important is we come to that when we see how the unwholesome or destructive nature work, because they work with the exact opposite state of mind. They work with unknown, darkness. It's like the light in our mind is out. The person who has reason and regard for consequences isn't home. That is why it is so important that we get into the habit of being with this state of awareness, of knowing it from other states. Like when I ask you, what are you knowing right now? And you can tell me clearly because you have intended and the state of awareness is actively there. We need to learn to differentiate this state from when we're not clearly aware. So as well as learn to keep our mind with ourselves, to keep our mind safe, so that it cannot be kidnapped by the unwholesome nature in the first place. Do you have something to say on this?
Yes.
You probably do, yeah.
And what that is effectively doing in regards to the three natures is that when we purify our mind, we are liberating our mind from a coarse place, a lower quarter of mind where our mind are filled with destructive, harmful, chaotic, confusing thoughts and emotion. clean, elevate up, elevate up, elevate up, cleaner, purer, to be able to bring our mind to the point where we can clearly hear our inner wholesome nature, the good ideas, the great thinking, the wholesome thoughts and emotion, all requires our connection with our wholesome nature. But that hinges on the quality of our mind. I think we remember times in our life where there's so many things going on and our mind are so overwhelmed and polluted. The type of thought that enters into our mind is so harmful, dark, and destructive. It's so difficult for any kind of positive or wholesome thought to get in there not because our wholesome nature doesn't want to help us and connect with us, but rather the quality of the mind is more suitable to connect with the unwholesome nature. There's so much polluted that it is conducive to connect with the unwholesome nature. That's why before we work, before we study, nowadays people meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes for them to just clean out the pollution in their mind. But for those who know the benefit, they would meditate a bit longer. And they all report that cleverness and great ideas pop up a lot easier when my mind is clear. Some people chose to find an alternative, a quiet place, a coffee shop, a library. They get inspiration from nature, from quiet, calm place, because these are conducive to the wholesome nature, to connect, for our mind to connect with our good instinct. But meditation is the fastest and surest way, because what meditation is, this is a more advanced explanation compared to the previous episode. Meditation specifically is the act of allowing the mind to penetrate through the walls and layers of the pollution to reach to be ever more clean and refined. And the more clean, the more refined your mind is, the higher quality of cleverness and wholesomeness and wisdom you can connect to. In other words, it's easier to connect to the good nature, the clever nature, and a better one, and a better one, and a better one. There are uncountable levels of cleverness we can connect to, but that hinges on the purity of our mind. What these mean is that what that translates to is what? Is that the proportion in our mind have shifted. In the past, it was 80% dirty, 19% clutter, not good, not bad, 1% wholesome. So you'll find yourself mostly with destructive thought, but when that stops, you have all the random thought that's neither wholesome nor unwholesome, but only a sliver of brightness of good thought in there, because there's three, right? But when we purify our mind, that proportion kind of shifts. The unwholesome nature thought kind of goes away first, and maybe not gonna bad to clear out. But if we don't go further and we find ourselves kind of like stopping when we are not suffering that much already, and we decide to waste our time with all the random things, then you'll find your mind filled with random things, not wholesome, no, not destructive. That will be the new majority. The unwholesome have become the minority, but the wholesome is still the minority too. So we have to keep on meditating to clear out, and clear out until the wholesome and beautiful thoughts and feeling and emotion are the majority. The random stuff are a far minority, and hopefully the unwholesome are the least, the smallest of fraction. And that could be done through both meditation and to study this important knowledge, the Buddha. Because this is what the Buddha teaches as its core. There are 84,000 different tools in Buddhism, all to help support and advance and improve the proportion of your wholesome nature. And only then can you then find yourself enlightened. Because what enlightened person is, and there's a clear definition. A person who have practiced will practice diligently, practice to be free and far away from all pollutants and defilement, meaning the proportion are so much of the wholesome nature, so much so that the unwholesome nature is so little that you can say it's no longer there. meaning completely wholesome nature. The proportion is utterly and completely wholesome. And that's what the Buddha taught. And that's how he and other people attain enlightenment. But as long as there's still the unwholesome nature, the not good, not bad nature, who still have influence, have governance in your life, you'll find it difficult to reach that perfection. So that is the answer to today's question. Do you have anything else you want to add on this?
Before I just quickly summarize what we went through today, for the people at home who are already practicing or who are thinking of starting to practice, at this point, like you just mentioned, as long as we still have the unwholesome nature and the neither constructive nor destructive nature in some proportions, they're the reasons why, just because we have learned this knowledge now, just because we have now started to practice, started to meditate, it won't just happen that it won't just all disappear, all the pollutants. Instead, it takes time and practice and work. And there's so many small misunderstandings, like puddles along the path that you can step into. And one reason for me to make this channel is because I have personally stepped into so many puddles myself and have misunderstood so much before and have fallen for so many strategies of the unwholesome nature in my mind before, that I wanted to share not only this beautiful teaching that we receive from our teacher, but I want to make my path worth it. Everything that I went through, want to make it worth it, because if it makes the path a little bit easier for someone else, then that would be great. And even if that's just one person. So at this point, I just want to tell everyone, please, when you practice, expect imperfection. As long as the other two natures still able to enter into your mind, you cannot expect perfection. You cannot expect yourself to behave as if you're an enlightened person. You cannot expect a meditation that's completely calm and still and everything when there are still pollutants in your mind. A polluted mind will act like a polluted mind. Along this path, we have to help each other. We have to understand one another, because all of us will trip, all of us will fall sometimes. But the motto, like this, the motto of the good nature is, no one is being left behind. So we have been practicing. I've been practicing for a bit more than 3 years. Ajahn Jimmy is my senior. He's been studying for around 2 years longer with our teacher, and he's been ordaining ever since he's a kid. And we're still practicing, we're still here, we're still studying those stories, going over the sea turtle story over and over. We're still proving to ourselves every day that this works, that connecting to the wholesome nature by being in the state of awareness works, that it really does decrease the chaos and confusion, and that we really can connect to something that is smarter than us, that can solve our problems even when we are out of answers. And this is what we want to share. This is why we're here doing these episodes. Do you have anything, or do you, otherwise I'll summarize. Okay. Then today we started with what was the need for the Buddha in the first place? Why did he need to be born? And we looked back at the discovery of the Buddha, the three natures again, the three root causes of all causes. We talked about how sea turtles are guided ever since they are babies, and how they are guided in different ways to come to that conclusion with the three natures. And then Ajahn Jimmy did a wonderful job in talking about the different thoughts and emotions that arise in our mind, which are the same program dictating us than the instinct in the turtles dictating them, that comes from one of the three natures. We talked about, in that part, we talked about the man whose family was harassed. And you talked about different habits, how every habit had a beginning. We were invited, but as it came up more often and more often, this program started to become developed. It became more and more automatic for us to go along with it. And now that no matter how old we are, we have all of these dormant programs lying around, including all of the pollutants we have accumulated over the years that lie there dormant in our mind. And in the second part, we talked all about how we already have a system that is the solution to all of this. We don't have to worry about all of these programs being there. We don't have to hate the pollutants. We just only have to learn and practice and get better at staying with the state of awareness, allowing the wholesome nature to allowing ourselves to be directly connected to the wholesome nature, and them to clean out all of this, and also to teach us, to come into our mind with their voice and tell us how to do better, how to improve. And this is the path. Everyone is somewhere along this path, and we are all here to help one another and to build environment and friends groups, like groups of like-minded people, to make it there easier. Because that is like, it is almost impossible to do this by yourself. It is so much easier when you have people, or rather the good nature in other people around you. So thank you so much for being here with me again. And this was the second episode of Monk Chat with Ajahn Jimmy. I hope you enjoyed. Give us a thumbs up if you did. And if you have any questions, any problems in your practice, please write it underneath the video, write a comment, and we can make videos in accordance with the questions that you ask.
All right. Thank you everyone very much for coming. See you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.